welcome back to Inside Number 23, my channel which is all about knitting and sewing and generally living the craftiest life possible. My name is Katie and you can find me pretty much everywhere as Miss Lavelli, on Instagram and Ravelry, and not really on Periscope at all. But we also have a Ravelry group for the podcast which you can find just by searching Inside Number 23 on Ravelry, and that's where you can get involved in our cows and giveaways and all of that good stuff. Let me just start by saying a huge hello, and it's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to you, so an extra big hello to all of my long-term viewers, and a big welcome if this is your first time visiting with me. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me. I have a really pretty epic episode to share with you today. There is so much to talk about and I'm just really happy to be back with you. It felt very strange last week not putting up an episode. For those of you who don't know, I was at Edinburgh Yarn Festival last weekend. So last Sunday, which is usually the day that I record, I was travelling back on the train from Edinburgh. So obviously recording was not on the cards. I did upload a video this week, a little vlog, which showed you a kind of behind the scenes of my Edinburgh Yarn Festival experience, some of the incredible people that I met. Genuinely, you guys, it was wonderful. I had an incredible time, but there is going to be a lot more on that later in the episode. This, I think, is going to be a pretty mammoth episode, so as always I am going to timestamp all of my different sections in my show notes down below, in the little kind of drop down on YouTube, and also in my show notes on Ravelry. You can find show notes for all of my episodes, bar a few that I seem to have forgotten to upload, in the Ravelry group. We should probably get started. I'm going to start off with a little bit of admin straight away. The Harry Potter Cal is ongoing on the podcast. It's a year-long Harry Potter knit-along, crochet-along, make-along, general everything fibre-based along. And I have opened up a thread for the March entries for that knit-along. You can find all of the details for the knit-along in the Ravelry group. I've also uploaded a little video with the details about it. But yes, get in your entries for March, and I shall be drawing the winner for that part of the knit-along in my first episode of April. So I believe that gives you not next week's episode, but the episode after. Also, our Andi Satterlund is coming to an end, you guys. It was a 3-month knit-along that started in January to knit a garment by the incredible designer Andi Satterlund, and that will be drawing to a close at the end of this month, at the end of March. So yes, basically again, you have a couple of weeks before I will be drawing the winner. So yeah, just get your finished objects in if you want to stand the chance of winning the prize that I shared with you, I believe a couple of weeks ago, but it is beautiful. So yeah, on that first episode of April, there'll be lots of prize drawings, so just get those finished objects in, you guys. That's pretty much everything on the administrative front. I do think it's a pretty good idea to crack on with the proper segments of the podcast because we have a lot of ground to cover. Just sitting here and looking at the piles of things I have to share with you is a little bit intimidating. So let's start off this week, as always, with what am I wearing? And yes, I am wearing my gorgeous, my wonderful, my favourite pattern currently, my Coco dress. This is a pattern by Tilly and the Buttons. I shared the finished object with you in my last episode, and I am wearing this. I'm living in this dress right now, you guys. I'm going to hop up and see if I can give you a little better view of the dress as a whole. So I appreciate you can't really see everything, but it goes all the way down to just above the knee. If I can show you, I have little pocket details on here. I did go with the stripes going in the same direction as the rest of the dress, and I just love it. It's a super kind of gentle, relaxed fit. As you can see, it's not super fitted anywhere. Slightly tighter around the bust, but even there is a lot of kind of wiggle room, and it's just the comfiest thing in the world. I genuinely want to make one of these in almost every colour in the world. It's just the most easy throw-on garment for day to day, but it's still nice to be wearing a dress because I pretty much spend my life in dresses. I very rarely wear anything else, so this is just wonderful. Plus, I like it all the more because Emrys basically says that it reminds him of Freddy Krueger. So this is my Freddy Krueger Coco dress, and that just makes me happy on so many levels. So yes, loving the Coco dress, want to make 100 more, and as always, I'm a massive fan of Tilly and the Buttons and everything that she does. I think it's about time that I tell you what's on my needles. And I am really pretty proud to be able to tell you this week that I have two finished objects to share with you. One of them you're probably aware of if you saw any of the pictures of me going around Edinburgh Yarn Festival on the Saturday, and if you saw my vlog and other people's vlogs about Edinburgh, because I was wearing this particular item whilst kind of trotting about on Saturday in Edinburgh. But I am very, very pleased to tell you that I finished my Wainthropp cardigan in time to take it to Edinburgh. Yes! So those of you who don't know, I knitted for my own Andi Satterlund cowl the Wainthropp cardigan by the incredible Andi Satterlund. And I knit it out of Blacker Yarns Classic in their aran weight, in the pale green colourway. And the reason that I used Blacker Yarns is that Blacker are the people who sponsored the podcast lounge, who basically enabled me to be able to go to Edinburgh and have a lovely podcasting pass, and it was amazing. They also had a knit along which ran alongside the preparations for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and I just really wanted to get involved with that. So without further ado, let me show you my finished cardigan. Here she is. Do 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 do. It really does need some kind of a theme tune. It's so lovely. I'm obsessed with it. So I have completed both of the full length sleeves on this cardigan as well. Well, obviously because I finished the entire thing, but let me show you everything. Haha. And yeah, absolutely love it. As I did for my blaster cardigan recently, I purchased buttons for this from Loop. I didn't actually manage to get into Loop in person to buy these buttons, but I spotted them online. I knew that they would be perfect for this cardigan, and let me just show you here. Can you see the little bunny? Aren't they just gorgeous? I'm so happy with how they look. I think they just look perfect, and it almost feels like a Beatrix Potter-esque cardigan now that those little bunny buttons are on here. But again, as I did for my blaster cardigan, and as I want to do for all of my cardigans from now onwards, I sewed some ribbon on the inside of the button band. So I just used this polka dot kind of creamy coloured ribbon that I had in my ribbon stash. And yes, I have a ribbon stash. And it's just a real joy to wear. I loved knitting on this. I found it a little frustrating, I'm not going to lie, because I did face some challenges with the sizing. For those of you who haven't followed the entire journey of this cardigan, I knit this on aran weight. It is written for worsted weight, and as I've come to understand from a lovely lady who spoke to me at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and I'm so sorry I can't remember your name, but apparently the Blacker Yarns yarn does tend to knit up even heavier than is stated. So this is a heavy weight aran, and I was doing a worsted weight pattern. So yeah, it all ended up for the best. It fits perfectly. It really, really does. The only place that it doesn't fit perfectly is the sleeves, which I find incredibly frustrating to tell you about, because I felt I was knitting on these sleeves for the longest time, because obviously they are full length sleeves in stockinette. You might notice I have a little fold up cuff. Looks like it's part of the pattern, doesn't it? Well, it's not. If I just unfold this, you can see there's actually a little bit of the lace work of the pattern around the edge. If I wore these as long as they were intended to be, they would have been kind of down here on my hands, which would have been incredibly uncomfortable in an aran weight sweater, considering how hot it was at Edinburgh as well. So I just turned them up. I quite like the cuffed look with this heavier weight jumper. I think it gives it a nice look. So rather than rip it back and re-knit them, I'm perfectly happy just to kind of have them cuffed and not have the lace detailing. I actually quite enjoy how it looks. So as we say when we make a slight mistake with our knitting, it's not a mistake, it's a design element. But yeah, I wore this pretty much all day on Saturday at the yarn festival, and it was a pleasure to wear. I was slightly concerned about the yarn content because obviously this black yarns, it's 100% British yarns including BFL, but it does have a bite to it. This is no merino cardigan, okay? This has some grip, but it was very comfortable. It wasn't at all irritating. I had it next to my skin the entire time and I wasn't scratching. I wasn't finding it difficult to wear, which was really lovely. Let me just quickly show you the back, because then you can get an idea of all of the lace. And also, can you believe that this lace is in aran weight? It confounds me. I think it's wonderful. I'm really, really proud that I managed to finish it in time for the festival. I'm really happy with how it looks, with how it fits, and it is starting to warm up a little bit in the UK now. Spring is springing. So I don't know how much wear I will get out of this, you know, in the very near future, but it's definitely going to be something that I'm reaching to the second that it gets cold, and it's just lovely. I'm so happy with it. So yeah, finished object number 1. My second finished object is something that I actually finished knitting whilst at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I knit this on the train up to Edinburgh and I spent some time working on it. I took it basically with me almost everywhere where I needed to have knitting, because you always need knitting when you're at a yarn festival. But this is also been a little bit of a long time coming because I had wanted to get this finished in February and hadn't, but it's some Harry Potter socks, and there are 2 of them, as you can see. So this yarn, in case you don't remember, is Dumbledore's favourite, which was from the yarn club of the incredibly talented Molly of A Homespun House. I am obsessed with this yarn. I genuinely think this might be one of my favourite pairs of socks that I have ever knit, and I do say that about almost every pair of socks that I knit, but these are just amazing. And I'm so happy that I decided to go with a vanilla sock for this yarn, because just look at these colours. This speckling is amazing and I love it so much. This pattern is the Sockmatician Toe Up sock recipe by lovely Nathan Taylor, who I met for the first time in Edinburgh, which I'll be telling you a little bit more about later. But this is my first ever toe up, heel flap and gusset. The first sock, no problem. Second sock, for some reason, I managed to completely, was going to say a rude word there, completely mess up the heel the first time I knit it. So I did have to rip it back on the train to Edinburgh, but I managed to get it back. I think I was just not increasing where I was supposed to. I ended up with about 10 stitches less than I should have had. But the second time, everything went smoothly, and then the rest of this was just knit on during the festival. I am really, really happy with them. I think, ooh, drunk socks there. I just really love them. I'm really enjoying working on socks after all the huge amounts of garments that I've been kind of working on in larger projects. I do think I have a few too many pairs of socks on the needles, so probably I'm going to be swinging back to garments again soon, but it's just lovely to have these finished, for them to be in such a beautiful yarn, to be another entry for the Box of Socks Cal, which I'm taking part in, and also, you know, be Harry Potter themed, because I desperately wanted my socks this year to be very Harry Potter influenced. In addition to my finished objects, I also have quite a few works in progress to share with you. And to be honest, I'm kind of feeling like I have too many works in progress again. I have so many things that I want to cast on, particularly after, you know, buying things at Edinburgh Yarn Festival and also being super inspired by so many people, seeing so many beautiful projects, that I am pretty desperate to get a lot of these things off the needles as soon as possible, but I am very much enjoying knitting on all of them. So I'm going to start off with my shawl, which I am test knitting for Madeleine and Tracy, Madeleine of Kingfisher Knits and Tracy of Norah George Yarns. They are collaborating to make these beautiful kits for the Patronus Shawl. I started to share this with you last week and, well, in my last episode, and I have done a little bit more work on this. I did take this to Edinburgh with me, but I didn't manage to get any work done on it whilst I was there. It was a little bit too big to just take out and knit on whilst at the festival. But the yarn is by Tracy. It is in Harry and James's Stag. That's the colourway, which is this beautiful kind of mahogany brown paired with this beautiful speckled contrast, which basically has greens and oranges and more of this brown. And I love this yarn so much. I just think it's gorgeous. Look at it. Isn't it just... Oh. It reminds me of hedgehogs and foxes and forest creatures and obviously stags. And the pattern is by Madeleine. I have done the first 2 sections of this. So the first section is the start off, then you have the striped section, and I am just starting the lace section. So if you can see here, there's a little bit of lace just here. I've pretty much just done the first repeat of that lace section. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a very, very intuitive knit, I would say. Particularly all of this garter striping was something that I could do late at night watching TV, no problems whatsoever. The lace is a little bit more mentally demanding, still very simple, and it is something that you can memorize very, very quickly, which is what I like with a pattern for a larger project. I don't like having to be glued to the pattern 24/7, so that's really, really great. Tracy is going to be coming out with some really, really beautiful colour combinations for this shawl as well. I know that Danny of the Little Bobbins podcast is also knitting on one of these. Tracy herself has been working on one as well. And so it's just really exciting. I think it's going to be something that all of you will love. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled. And obviously I will let you know once that is all announced and it goes live. The next couple of works in progress that I have to share with you are all socks. So when I finished my Dumbledore's favourite socks, I realised that I needed to cast on a new pair. So I do have a new cast on of socks. So you may or may not remember this yarn. This is by Valkyrie Fibers. It was a combination, a lovely Valentine's Day Doctor Who themed set of 2 skeins of yarn. This lovely gobstopper of self-striping by Valkyrie Fibers. Another skein, it's just behind me so I can grab it, by Knox Yarn Co, which I'm so excited about. This is called Love and Monsters, and this one was called Allonsy, and also the bag as well. And I have been wanting to cast on another pair of socks for Emrys for the longest time, because my wonderful, long-suffering husband is so supportive of everything that I do with the podcast. He is one of the most knit-worthy people that I have ever come across, and he deserves lots of nice things. So I decided to cast on his Doctor Who socks out of the Valkyrie Fibers gobstopper. And I have this. This I also knitted almost entirely during my time in Edinburgh. I've also cast on the second one. That's just here. And I have just finished doing the toe increases. So there's my little teeny tiny toe. So yeah, Emrys will have a pair of Doctor Who themed socks. I think he's pretty excited about them. But the next pair that I have been working on are making me so happy in a lot of different ways. Firstly, they are 2 at a time, and I have missed 2 at a time socks. Secondly, I am using an incredible skein of yarn that was sent to me by Kate Selene, which is this yarn. This is called Emerald City, and I have been wanting to cast something on out of this for the longest time. I needed to make a pair of socks with it that were inspired by one of my new favourite Harry Potter characters, because of course it was going to be a Harry Potter themed project, let's be honest. And he is not necessarily hugely well known at the moment because not a lot of people have had the good luck to actually go and see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I have. Emrys and I saw it in December. I absolutely loved it. I'm completely obsessed with it. And my favourite character in the entire play is a character called Scorpius. And I'm very much not wanting to give any kind of spoilers away about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at all, because I know that a lot of people have read the book and that's fine, but I liked going in and not knowing anything. So I'm not going to say anything more about him other than the fact that his name is Scorpius and he's probably my favourite. He's in the top 3 of my favourite Harry Potter characters of all time. Put it that way. I absolutely loved him. So I needed to do a pair of socks inspired by him. This colourway was perfect. And I wanted to make the most of the colour by doing something textured. So I picked up a pattern that I haven't worked on in a while. It is called, I believe, the Synneva or Synneva pattern. I'm going to put the name down below. It's a free pattern and it is glorious. Look at these teeny tiny little cables on this sock. Oh my goodness. And yes, you've probably noticed I am using my Chocolate Frog Progress Keeper, which was so generously sent to me by lovely Tracy of Thimble and Thread Make. I love it, Tracy. It's amazing. And it's particularly appropriate because Scorpius, in his very first scene in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, is eating a lot of sweets. So that felt very, very appropriate. But yes, these are going to be my Scorpius socks. I am in love with them. I'm really enjoying this pattern. It is a pattern that I have knit once previously, but I only actually got round to making 1 sock. I didn't do 2. So these are going to be fantastic. But I do really, really want to get Emrys's socks finished pretty swiftly because knitting socks individually is starting to get on my nerves a little bit. So they may be taking a bit of a back seat, but they are so much fun. I love the pattern. Like, I can't remember if I said that it's free, but it's a free pattern on Ravelry. And yeah, the sock mojo is strong, but I feel that it may be waning slightly. So I need to get these socks off the needles ASAP so that I can get knitting some of the amazing things that I bought back from Edinburgh. I have one more section before we move on to all of the Edinburgh Yarn Festival bits and pieces, and I'm excited to say that that is So What? Because in addition to my Coco dress, which I made to take with me to Edinburgh, I also managed to crank out another dress before I left, and I am so excited to share this with you. If you follow me on Instagram, you have probably seen some of the details of this dress already. People were getting very excited about it, and I was getting very excited as well because it is another version of the Robe Bluet dress by Deer and Doe. And I have already made 2 different versions of this dress, starting for my birthday last year. So in September, I made my kind of foxy lady version of this dress. I also made a Halloween version to take with me to Orlando, Florida, when we went to Disney World for Halloween. I have now made my 3rd version, and I think it may be my favourite. But let me just show you the fabric that I've used straight away. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you're going to remember this fabric. I bought this in the sale of John Lewis in January, and it's this. Kitty's fabric, covered in little kitty cats, all kinds of different kitty cats. And when I saw it, I knew that it was just destined to be a Robe Bluet dress. But my real favourite part of this dress ended up being the collar. Now, with every version of the Robe Bluet dress that I have ever made, it always has a contrasting colour. With my Foxy Lady dress, it just had a white rounded Peter Pan collar. With my Halloween version, it had a black rounded Peter Pan collar. Now with this version, I decided to keep the original pattern, which is a pointed collar. But I thought, this is a kitty cat dress. It needs a little bit of interest on the collar. So when I was sewing it together, I embroidered some little kitty cats onto it. So I basically went through and looked at all of the cats on the fabric, and I picked two that I thought looked really cute. I just drew up their faces onto the collar, directly onto the fabric, and before I went into construction, I just sat down and I sewed them just with black thread. I believe I used two kind of strands of black embroidery thread, and I also added, if you can see, little pink noses. They do have little pink noses, which I think is adorable, and it just made me so happy. I really wanted to have this finished to wear at Edinburgh because I wanted a special dress to be able to wear there in addition to my Coco dress. I wore my Coco on Friday and then I wore my kitty dress on Saturday. I love this dress. It is slightly different to the other versions of this dress that I have made before. Like I said, I left the collar alone and did it 100% as per the pattern. I also did the collar stand in the contrast fabric. So if you can see here, the collar stand as well as the collar is in white. On every other version of this dress that I've done so far, the collar stand's been in the same colour as the rest of the dress. The other thing that I did is that this pattern does create puffed sleeves with a little cuff. I omitted the cuff and I made them into straight sleeves. So they still have a little puff at the top, but the bottom has no puff at all. It's just a straight sewn sleeve, which I thought would be more appropriate for this fabric because there's already quite a lot going on. I didn't think that having cuffs and puffs and all of this kind of stuff would be necessary. So I am so happy with how it's turned out. It's beautiful. This genuinely is probably my favourite sewing pattern of all time. I know I was saying how much I love the Coco dress, and I really do, but this dress to me, it's kind of like a personal uniform that I could wear every single day and just be so happy. It fits really comfortably. It has a little bit of flare around the bottom, but not too much. It's a good length on me, just above the knee, like I said, and it just makes me happy. Particularly, how could you not be happy when you have little kitty cats on your collar? So I am really thrilled to have got this finished. It has proved to me once again that sewing, I had such a block on my sewing for such a long time. I was really struggling to get anything done, and this has proved to me again that you can achieve something really special in very little time. So I'm really thrilled, really thrilled, and thank you to everybody who kind of commented on it when I was wearing it at Edinburgh, because I really just loved wearing it, and it always makes a difference when other people tell you that they enjoy something that you've made as well. So yay, the Sojo is back. Okay, I think it's about time that we talked about Edinburgh, don't you? And I'm going to start off by saying that I know that there are a lot of people who couldn't get to Edinburgh Yarn Festival who are finding it a little bit frustrating that so many people are talking about it, and I'm sorry if that's the way that you feel. It's something that I loved, it's something that I want to share with you. If you don't want to hear about Edinburgh, then you can definitely skip this section, but I hope that you'll want to share in a little bit of the love, and let's be honest, it's done now, so we won't be hearing any more about it till next year's Edinburgh Yarn Festival. On Thursday morning, Vero and I met up. We got the train to Edinburgh. We met up, I think, at Peterborough. We had to change and we got on the train. We had a lovely journey up. We chatted the whole time. We knit. By the time that we got there, we were a little bit exhausted. The journey, I think, took around about 4 hours, which isn't too bad. But when you're sitting on a train for that amount of time, you do tend to get a little bit twitchy. So I think we were both very glad to get out in the fresh air when we got there. We got to our apartment. We got all settled in. And then pretty much straight away, I went to have a coffee with lovely Nathan Taylor of the Sockmatician podcast. Hi, Nathan, if you're watching. It was pretty amazing because Nathan and I had been messaging each other in the lead up to Edinburgh because we both know that we were going to be there. And we've never actually met in person, which is kind of ridiculous. It was absolutely wonderful, genuinely. I think I have met a kindred spirit in Nathan, which is amazing. It was lovely to chat with him. I think from the second that we kind of caught sight of each other, it was like two old friends catching up. It was brilliant. We had the best possible time. Chatted away non-stop the entire time that we were together. And then I had to head to Akvar, which was a restaurant very close to where I was actually staying when my apartment was. So we headed there for the knit night. I ended up taking Nathan with me. I believe he had other plans for the evening, but he thought that sounds fun, why not go to that as well? And I ended up meeting there some people, so many different podcasters for one, but also just lovely people in general. It was pretty overwhelming. It was at this point that I started to realise just how intense Edinburgh Yarn Festival was going to be. I don't think I understood just how many people were going to be around, how many people had travelled hundreds and hundreds, if not, you know, more miles to be there, and also how many people were going who would know who I am. That kind of shocked me a little bit, but I met so many lovely people on that knit night. In particular, this is where I first kind of caught up with the majority of a lot of other podcasters, like I said. So there was Grace of the Babbles Travelling Yarns podcast, Becky of Soprano Knits. I always want to say Soprano Knits podcast, but it's stringing it together. Charlotte of Charlotte and Gus podcast, Claire of Beautiful Things, Ellie, who is Skein Deer on Instagram, and also has the Skein Deer podcast. And it was just amazing to meet all of these people in real life. Incredibly overwhelming. Also, there are about, I would say there was easily maybe 300 people from Edinburgh Yarn Festival at this knit night, and it was hot. It was the very beginning of the very, 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 very hot weekend. I think I overheated quite a lot during that time, but we sat together, we knitted, we chatted as much as we could. It was very, very loud. Oh, I also met Shamika at this point of Knit Night with Mika. And we all decided that we wanted to head and get some food. So we head into kind of the old town of Edinburgh, and we ended up in a pub. It was really, really lovely. A big group of us. We also met up with Eric and his partner Sebastian. That's Eric of Sticks Plus Twine, and Kristen of Vool and Vine Yarns and the Yarngasm podcast. It's lovely to see Kristen again, and her husband Dennis. And yeah, it was kind of going into everything full throttle. I hadn't imagined that we'd be going in as hard as we did on that first day, but it was still really, really wonderful. We had some food together, and then Vero and I ended up walking all the way back to our apartment. I think it took us just shy of half an hour, but it was a lovely, kind of clear, cool night. And after being so hot at the knit night, it was really quite refreshing. And we slept very, very well that night. To get up early the next day, which was the first day of the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Now, we were really lucky because we were invited as podcasters to Edinburgh Yarn Festival that we had early access to the marketplace. So we were able to get in at 9 o'clock and general entry was at 10. So we queued up to get into Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and we got in at 9. And my goodness, it was already completely ramo. It was intense and hot. Oh my goodness. The whole experience, I would say, was very, very hot. But I think it's about time I share a little bit of stash, don't you? So the first stall that I headed to, really, when I got into the marketplace was the Travel Knitter stall. I have been a fan of Travel Knitter for a while. I think that her yarns are incredible, and I particularly appreciate her colour palette. She tends to focus on really rich jewel tones of yarn, and there are about 4 different colourways that I was losing my mind over, and I wanted to buy everything, and this was within 5 minutes of walking through the door of the marketplace. I couldn't make a purchase that early on, and I'd also promised myself that I wouldn't be buying fingering weight yarn at this festival. I made that promise because the most kind of recent things that I have purchased has all been fingering weight yarns, and as you can see from this selection behind me, I am not short of fingering weight sock yarns. I wanted to be a lot more practical and buy things for specific projects and buy different things that were more special and slightly more unique, so I wouldn't just end up with another 10 skeins of fingering weight sock yarn. Not that there's anything wrong with fingering weight sock yarn, because as you can see I have a lot, but I thought it's about time that I look for something a little bit different. So as attracted as I was to everything at the Travel Knitter booth, I didn't make a purchase at that point. That changed a little bit later in the day, but I'll get back to that. But the next place that I headed off to pretty much straight away after being at the Travel Knitter booth was La Bien-Aimée. And everybody, it seemed, was excited that La Bien-Aimée was vending at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Pretty much every person that I spoke to had made a purchase at that booth, and I was not any different. I ended up picking up 2 skeins of yarn from La Bien-Aimée. There were lots of different skeins that I was interested in buying, but I was particularly focused on their DK weight yarn. And that is because I have plans to knit myself the Colour Field Shawl by Kemperay. And that's Kemperay of Junk Yarns and the Junk Yarn podcast. So the first colour that spoke to me, there were a lot of colours there that I could have gone for, but this one just made my head spin, was this one. This glorious olive green. And there is their lovely label, La Bien-Aimée. This is called the Shire, and I am obsessed with this. Once I saw it and once I picked it up, I could not put it down. I love it so much, and it's, I mean, this yarn is glorious. It's 100% superwash merino, so you can imagine the squidge. But then I was looking for a contrast colour, and I picked up this. I'm not sure how well this colour will come across on camera, but the base is kind of this biscuity taupe. It has little speckles of burgundy and pink, and as you can see, it has little speckles of that same olive green as well, and I love it. This colourway, I'm going to embarrass myself now, is Pierre Vaux. It's French, I don't know what it means, but to me it means amazing, because these 2 colours are going to go together in my colour field shawl, and I am really, really excited to work on this. I don't know when this is going to get cast on, because I do have quite a lot of other shawl projects kind of on the go, or that I've planned to get knitted up, but I am so happy with these colours. I love them so much. And this kind of palette was very much the kind of palette that I was going for in every kind of purchase that I made. In stark contrast, however, is my next purchase. Because in addition to making a colour field shawl for myself, I have decided that it's about time that I knit a really, really lovely project for my mum, who has made a couple of appearances on this podcast previously, so you've probably seen her. But again, like I was saying about Emrys being super knit-worthy, my mum is probably even more knit-worthy than Emrys, because she, as a knitter, understands what really, really goes into knitting. And she's just my best friend in the whole world. So I had my eyes kind of peeled for some specific yarn for a colour field shawl for my mum as well. And after we'd kind of stalked La Bien-Aimée, I headed over to the A Yarn Story booth, but they have hedgehog fibres and they had the DK weight, and I knew from the second that I saw that they had these DK weight yarns that I needed to purchase some for my mum. So first of all, I'm going to show you this one first. I have already caked these up because I want to get started on this project for my mum as soon as possible, is this cake. Now this colourway is Film Noir. So it's mostly natural, but it has some speckles of pinks and reds and also a little bit of black and gold. And I think this is gorgeous. So this is subtle. The colour that I picked for the contrast to this is not subtle. It's this. So these cakes are going to be going together. Don't they look great? I'm really excited about this, but my mum is a huge pink fan, and you can't get much more pink than this. This is the Jelly colourway by Hedgehog Fibers, and yes, it's very out of character for me to be knitting with this kind of a colour, but this is for my mum and she loves the pink, and I will do anything to make her happy. So yeah, got a very different kind of colour palette for me normally, but it should be fun. I'm going to enjoy knitting with this, even though it's not something that I would usually wear myself, and I just think it looks fantastic. I love how the second that I put this up on camera, it goes like fluorescent pink as well. It's brilliant. But yes, my second purchase, Hedgehog Fibers in Film Noir and the Jelly colourway. Now, one thing that I had been wanting to keep my eyes open for through pretty much the entire time that I was at Edinburgh Yarn Festival was lace weight yarn. And yeah, that's a little bit out of the box for me. Like I said, I'm very much a fingering weight type person, and a lot of my garments are knit in heavier weights, but fingering weight yarn was not really something that I've ever had any interest in. However, I have been dying for the longest time to knit the Luca Shawl by Jared Flood. I first started getting interested in this when Eric, my lovely friend Eric, was doing his pie shawl cowl, and I intended to cast this project on then, but I never got the time. And I never ended up picking up any lace weight yarn that I thought would work for this project. And it just so happened that when I was visiting the Skein Queen booth, like I said, I was staying with Debbie from Skein Queen, and I was looking over some of the beautiful things that she had in her booth. And I said to her, "Do you have any lace weight?" And she goes, "Yeah, I've got a couple of bits just at this end of the table." And I found something really special I'm so excited about. Okay, so I picked up 2 skeins of this. I really wish that I could explain to you how this yarn feels. I mean, the colour is utterly glorious. It's this beautiful silver grey colour. And you can probably see from the camera, I think it's coming up quite well, there is a gorgeous sheen to this yarn. There's a reason that this has a sheen. I'm just gonna wear this. Oh, I can't wait. I love it so much. There's a reason that this has a sheen, because it's 50% silk and 50% camel, and it feels like clouds and silky soft baby puppy bellies, and I love it so much. It is utterly gorgeous, and the second that I felt this, I just had to get it for the Luca Shawl. And we'll see how I get on, but it was just lovely to purchase something from Debbie, because like I said, I have so much respect for everything that she did at the festival. She worked so hard, and yeah, getting these was just a real treat. I made 2 more purchases on the first day of Edinburgh Yarn Festival. One I really had been looking out for specifically, and that was from the Kate Davies book. I picked up Yokes because I've been meaning to get this book for the longest time, but every time that I went to Loop in London, which is where I usually get a lot of my knitting books, they were sold out. So I'm very happy to now be able to say that I have Yokes, and I want to knit everything from this. Even more excitingly, Kate actually signed it for me as well, because she was there on the Friday. She wasn't there on the Saturday. I believe that she wasn't feeling up to it, but it was a real pleasure to meet her, and my goodness, she's one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever met in my life. But the last purchase that I made on the Friday was, surprise back at Travel Knitter, and I swung back there and I had a little look around at everything on the stall again, and I gravitated back to the yarn that I'd picked up first thing that morning. I couldn't decide which colour that I wanted, but I knew that I was going to be purchasing this, and I'm so happy that I did. And it ended up that this colourway that I picked, I managed to get the last 3 skeins of this yarn. So I'm very happy that I did that. And it is this colour. Oh my goodness. So it's this beautiful, rich, plummy burgundy. and I am obsessed with it. It's going to be a featherweight cardigan because it's about time that I knit another one. The colourway is English Damson, and this is the Tanami 4-ply. I think that's how you pronounce it, but can I just tell you what this is? 50% baby camel and 50% silk, because apparently I have lost my mind and only want to knit with camel and silk from now onwards. But again, if you could feel this, you guys, if you could feel how amazing this is, how soft this is, you would just die. I am so happy with this yarn, and I know that I said that I wasn't going to buy 4-ply yarn, but this was worth it. Travel knitter yarn. First ever travel knitter, and it's going to make the most beautiful featherweight cardigan known to man. So after all of that damage that had been done at the marketplace, basically Vero and I decided that it was time that we headed home. We went back to the apartment, we chilled out for a little bit. We ended up ordering in pizza, we had some Prosecco, we hung out with Debbie and Eliza, and it was a really lovely relaxed evening. The next day I pretty much spent my time in the marketplace as well. I picked up a couple more things, which I will show you in a second. I also managed to run into Tracy of Norah George Yarns. Oh, I forgot to say, on Friday, I also ran into Nikki of the Tea and Possibilities podcast, which was so lovely. It was quite brief. We didn't end up having the longest of conversations, but it was just wonderful to meet her in real life. She is wonderful. So hi, Nikki, if you're watching, it was so great to meet you. But yes, I finally met Tracy of Norah George, which just blew my mind because I feel like we've known each other for the longest time. We have a lot of things in common, don't we, Tracy? A lot of things. And I also have so much love and respect for her and everything that she does with her business. I think she's incredible. So to meet her in real life and hug her and be able to tell her in person how wonderful she is was incredible. But she is a naughty, naughty lady, and she actually ended up giving me another skein of her yarn, which was so appreciated. Is this not gorgeous? So she dyed this specifically for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and it's called Thistle. And if you can see, it's just gorgeous. All of these kind of lilac-y purples, bit of natural in there, bit of green. It's beautiful, and it's on a blue face Leicester and nylon blend, which is particularly appropriate for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival as it's so focused on British yarns, and I love this. I love it so much. I love blue face Leicester. So as always, Tracy, thank you so much, my lovely, lovely friend, and I'm in love, obviously, as always. Another person who I bumped into in the Podcaster Lounge, because I did spend a lot of time in the Podcaster Lounge, was Madeleine of the Wolf and Schaefer podcast. And Wolf and Schaefer, she dyes her own yarn as well. And it was really, really nice to meet you, Madeleine. She sent a prize for the first ever Harry Potter cowl. She was one of the first people to ever send me a prize, which was just so generous. And she very cheekily gave me some more yarn, which is just incredible and so, so appreciated. She ended up giving me 2 skeins of yarn, full skeins. This one is one of my favourite yarn combinations. It's a merino cashmere nylon blend, and this is the honey colourway, and that yellow is just perfect. I love it. It's so squishy and nice. This one in particular is just so soft. It's 70% baby alpaca and 30% mulberry silk. And this colourway is called Soul Society. And it's this beautiful silvery grey blue. And it's, oh my goodness, so, so pretty. She also included a little mini skein called All Saints Day. Sorry, I couldn't even read the label just then, which is so cute. And these, I haven't decided exactly what we're going to be doing with them, but these may well end up being prizes for the Harry Potter cowl. But thank you, thank you, thank you, Magdalena. So generous of you as always. You are such a kind and lovely human being, and it was really, really lovely to meet you. I made 2 more purchases at Edinburgh. Yeah, we're getting there, guys. We're getting to the end of everything. And one of them was kind of unintentional. The other one, I went back to the marketplace on Saturday thinking this is the only thing that I'm going to be buying, and that was after purchasing Yolks by Kate Davies. I saw that Eric had purchased one of her books, and I was flipping through it after he'd bought it, and I realised that I couldn't leave it behind, that I had to get a copy of it for myself, and that is this one, inspired by Islay, I believe it is, but again, I'm terrible at pronouncing things. It's another beautiful pattern collection by Kate Davies. It is using her specific yarn that comes from their flock of sheep, I believe, and it's just gorgeous. My particular favourite at this point is this pattern. I really need to knit me one of these, but I think it will be a while before I cast on any of the projects in here just because of the amount of other things that I have to work on, but most definitely these will be in my near future. I pretty much want to knit everything in here and I love it. But the next purchase that I actually ended up making, and my final purchase of the Yarn Festival, was something that I had heard about through the grapevine, about being able to get a larger quantity of yarn for a much less amount of money than you would anticipate. So the booth that I ended up going to was one called Laxton's Limited, and from what I could gather, their products that they were selling were almost entirely undyed skeins of yarn. So they had a huge variety of different bases, fingering weight and DK. I think they may even have had some things a little bit thinner and a bit heavier, but I gravitated towards the DK yarn. I was telling myself, you know, no more fingering weight, you have enough fingering weight sweater quantities of yarn. Just gesture behind myself a little bit here. You don't need to get any more fingering weight yarn, but I thought how nice would it be to maybe pick up a DK sweaters quantity and just see how much it would be. So let me show you the yarn that I picked up. This is 5 hanks of 100 grams of DK yarn, and it's kind of a marbled blend of Blueface Leicester and Masham, so it's really gorgeous. It's this kind of grey brown, and I love it. It has such a pretty look to it, and it is all natural, completely non-dyed, and it cost me less than £23 for this much yarn. I couldn't believe it. I mean, if I'd had an indefinite amount of money to spend, I would have just gone nuts and kept on buying yarn, but this is just gorgeous. This is the one kind of purchase that I didn't have a real project in mind for when I bought it, but I will be using this, I think, for some kind of cabled cardigan. I've got enough yardage in there for a cardigan for myself, which is incredibly exciting to be able to get it for that amount of money. And yeah, again, this is going to be something that's not going to get cast on for a while, so I'm not losing sleep over the fact that I haven't picked out a pattern yet. It's just nice to know that when I need to cast on something cable-y and nice for winter, autumn, that I already have the supplies for it. So an unexpected purchase, but one that I am incredibly excited about nonetheless. And yeah, those are all the purchases that I made. That is my kind of overall haul of everything from Edinburgh. On the Saturday night, we all headed out for dinner. I ended up going to a lovely meetup that was organised by Helen Stewart. I met Helen for the first time, Helen Stewart of the Curious Handmade podcast, and it was so lovely to meet you, Helen. It ended up being at a really nice pub. It was quite busy, but we all had a really nice meal and a drink, and it was just a really nice way to spend that last kind of full evening in Edinburgh. We also caught up with Kristen and her husband Dennis again, and we just had a really great time. Our last day was a lot more relaxed. I was intending to get a tattoo in Edinburgh, but as you probably saw from my vlog, that didn't end up happening. I ended up hanging out with, obviously, Vero, but Grace again and Ellie again, and we had a really lovely lunch in a pub where we just knitted and sat and chatted for the longest time. It was a really nice wind down for our last time in Edinburgh. And then Vero and I caught our train It was a lot less civilized than our journey up. I think a lot of people experienced that. The journey up was incredibly quiet. Vera and I had a table to ourselves the entire time. The journey back, we had a lot of people around us, including the woman sitting next to me who kept trying to fall asleep on my shoulder, which wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. But I eventually got home, back to Emrys, back to my lovely puppy Rolly, and it was just, it felt like it had all happened in the blink of an eye. It was incredible, and I will most definitely be going again next year. Fingers crossed I'll be able to take Emrys with me. That would be incredible if I could take him with me as well. And I know that a lot of you guys would probably like to meet him, but it would be amazing to do it. I fully intend to go again next year, and I hope that I'll be able to meet a load of you guys again. I am going to end the podcast this week with an incredibly brief general waffle. General waffle. It really is a very brief one. I've babbled on for long enough this week, but I just wanted to kind of talk about how inspired and how happy and how lucky I feel to be a part of this community. I talk about it all the time, about how amazing all of you guys are, about how much I appreciate you, how much I love you, but genuinely having so many people come up and speak to me at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, share very personal kind of experiences with me regarding my podcast and how it's brought them happiness in times that have been difficult, how it's helped them through the more rocky parts of their life, about how I make you guys happy by being on your screen every week. I can't tell you how much that means to me. You inspire me on a day-to-day basis to be better, to do more exciting things with this podcast, to just really immerse myself in the amazingness of this community. And if anything, I feel so inspired that there are going to be some incredible things coming for the podcast in the next year or so. I can't wait. I'm so excited to be able to share some of these things with you. I'm not going to be doing that just yet, but in terms of projects that I'm going to be working on, in terms of other cals and make-alongs that I have in the works, in terms of other things going on behind the scenes at Inside Number 23 that I can't yet talk about, but I'm so excited about, I just want to say thank you for being a constant source of love and support and inspiration. And if I can give anything back to you by just chatting with you every week, then that's amazing. And how lucky are we? How lucky am I? Thank you so much. That's everything for this week, you guys. I'm sorry it's gone on for quite a bit longer than it usually does, but we needed to get through all of the Edinburgh stuff. For now, happy sewing, happy knitting. I love you all, and I'll see you again next week. Bye! What are your thoughts on the podcast this week, Rolly? Anything? Got any knitting that you want to share? See, people get annoyed when you're not on the podcast, but you're not very free with your opinions. Hey? Handsome puppy.